Hello Tenno, Zelp here, and today we are going to talk about the Toxin Damage over time from Toxin Procs and also Gas Procs. Now I did talk about this before in a much older video, however that older video is based out of formulas from Wiki, and it was brought to my attention that apparently Wiki's formula does not really work on all sorts of builds. So you're gonna learn about like what works and what doesn't, and also I'm going to show you a different method of calculating, which is what I believe is the correct way or how the game actually does it. On top of that, I know there's this huge fuss around talking about the faction mods, like those things on Grenier, Infested, and all those, and how they sort of multiply like 3 times or something. So we're gonna take a look at that as well in this video. Before we start, I'm going to show you what Wiki actually gave us in terms of equation or understanding of the game. So let's come over here. So first of all is the Toxin Damage. So when you do a Toxin Proc, the damage over time is given to you here in a sentence, which states that the damage is 50% of your weapon and also 50% of toxin damage per tick. Okay, so basically 50% of your base damage from your weapon plus a 50% of your toxin damage. The next one is for gas procs, and as you can see, the first instant is actually exactly the same as the toxin DOT, only the first instant is just a toxin damage, and it doesn't actually, that damage is actually not the DOT damage. But as you can see, base damage plus toxin damage divided by 2. Now in case if you can't see that it's the same thing, I made out a simple small little box here so that you can see. Okay, so it says 50% base damage plus 50% toxin damage. This is the toxin DOT equation given in a sentence. Then you could sort of bring that 50% out, and then you could put a bracket in and you get base damage plus toxin damage times 50%, and then you could rewrite the 50% become something like times 0.5, and then after that you can rewrite this again as divide by 2, and this is what is given over here, base damage plus toxin damage divided by 2. So we know that the first instant and the toxin damage is the same thing. Alright, the thing about the gas procs is that the DOT damage is calculated in the second instant, which is 125% out of the first instant, and this is what is given to us. So I'm going to show you how in what cases Wiki is correct. Now do keep in mind that over here is base damage plus toxin damage. You realize that the damage is not increased by any other elemental mods. So if you have I don't know, if you have heat mods on because you want to get gas, that heat mod does not contribute to the first instant damage. It does not contribute to the second instant damage. It only contributes to the gas damage from the initial hit, the first hit that procs. Also do keep in mind that over here is the base damage as well. It's not like specific physical damage, so physical damage is also out of the question. The only thing that will influence all this is actual mods that gives you damage multipliers like pressure point, steel charge, and stuff like that. Over here I have the Shaku, and the Shaku is actually another great weapon to work with. The reason why is because if you remove everything, you could see that it only has impact damage, and that makes it a lot easier to count. And if you have a lot of different damage type, your calculation is going to be very tedious. So weapons like the Shaku, weapons like the Twin Basslock is 2 of my favorite weapons to do actual calculations. Okay, so let's get started. Now I'm gonna put in Volcanic Edge just because I want to get it into gas, but the idea here is that since Volcanic Edge is actually not going to contribute any damage, so my toxin damage is actually going to be just this one, 33, if I have a 60% toxin mod on. However, if you want to do high DOT damage, it kind of makes no sense to not have both toxin mods on at the same time, because that is the thing that's going to increase your toxin damage as much as you could. So in other words, right now my total toxin damage is 82.5. Okay, so that means this toxin damage is 82.5 and my base damage is 55. So 55 plus 82.5 divided by 2 will be my first instant damage, despite whatever I put on. So I'm gonna put on the volcanic edge just to get it to gas, and then I'm also going to put in melee prowess just to get the extra status chance. Now I do not actually want to have things like drifting contact because of the increase in combo duration. So in case I do not proc in the first few hits, I don't have to actually like wait a really long time, because you want to make sure that when you do test things like this, you do not want it to get influenced by your combo count, your melee combo count. Okay, so let's, nope, there you go. But I saw a critical there, so that might not be, yeah, it's not the one. So let's wait for it to go off and we'll hit it again. There you go. Nope, nope. Okay, let's wait for the combo to go off. There you go. Okay, so I will pause the screen and I'll show you the damage. Take note of those damage so that we could use it in the calculations. So if I were to come over here and show you the calculations, so we're gonna be looking at this one. Alright, so this is the base damage, which is 55. The toxin damage is 55 times the 150%, because 60% from dual stat mod and also 90% from the fever strike. So you get a 150%, and then you get your 82.5 toxin damage. So the formula for the first instant is 55 plus 82.5 divided by 2, and that will give you 68.75. Now the actual damage that you will see in the screen, which I will freeze or have already frozen because I'll be doing this after I record everything, so it should be 67. Okay, so there is a little bit of difference here, almost like a 1.7 damage difference, but it's okay because I said this before, and later we're gonna see why. The game actually does this. It increases the damage or decreases it insignificantly to give them information about your damage type or damage source. Alright, so really close. I would say that this is workable, it's correct. So the next one is the second instant. So from here is you take the first instant, which is your toxin damage, and then you times it with 125% according to wiki, and you should get 85.9 damage, but actual is 82 damage. Now this is again really close, so in my opinion this is still correct. Okay, so now we're gonna see what happens when you put in something like a prime pressure point into the build. So here we go, prime pressure point. Alright, so prime pressure point gives you 165 extra melee damage, and that is going to increase your toxin damage. Okay, so that toxin damage and also the base damage will increase as well. So let's get a fresh new charger. Alright, let me get a Toxin Proc that is not a critical and does not have combo multiplier on. Oh, I saw a critical. That's not the one. So you can see 452. Yeah, that's because of the critical. That's not the one. Here we go. Nope. There you go. Okay, as you can see, you see the damage, which I will freeze the screen again for you to see. Okay, so let's just take a look at the spreadsheet and see what happens. Okay, so right now we're gonna look at this part of the spreadsheet. So with prime pressure point 165%, first instant will be again the 55 plus the 82.5. Now this 2 will be multiplied, as in it's going to be increased by your prime pressure point. So you times it with a 1 plus 1 being itself, so plus the 165% damage, and then you divide by 2 and you should get 182.1 damage. However, the actual is 181, close enough, it is accurate. Next one, second instant is that 182.1, which is your toxin damage, times 125%. And then we're gonna see 227.7. However, the actual is only 225 damage. Again, really close, and it's accurate. Now the next one is we're gonna have all with the pressure point and also a smite. Okay, and it's gonna be an infested smite. So let's take a look at that. Over here, smite polka. Alright, so this one gives you an extra 30% damage to the infested. Now this is a separate multiplier from the damage multiplier from pressure point and stuff like that. So what will happen is that you get another extra additional 30%. However, something weird happens, and I'm gonna explain what in just a second, right? So again, fresh new charger. Here we go. Oh, nice in the first hit. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the screen, I'm gonna show you the values, and then we are going to come back to the spreadsheet. Okay, so now we're gonna look at this part. So just now was with the pressure point, now with smite as well. So first instant, okay, so again, what happens here is that the red color, by the way, I did not tell you, the red is actually the changes that occurs. Okay, so for this one, the changes is that instead of this, you have the pressure point, so you have this thing on, right? So now this changes will be the new toxin damage. So in this case, this one is the pressure point, and the extra changes is that you have to include the smite mod, so it's over here. But what happens is, instead of just including it over here, increase it by 30%. After you get the entire damage amount, that whole thing is increased by another 30%. Alright, and that will give you 307 damage, 307.8. And the actual is also 307, so it's very accurate and it's correct. The second instant, however, so you take the toxin and then you times with 125%, and that entire thing again times with another extra 30%. So you should get 500 damage, but the actual is only 497, only 3 damage difference. So again, it's really close, and I would consider it as accurate. So in this scenario, wiki is correct. Now, although in the wiki formula it does not come, as in it does not actually tell you where to put the damage multipliers, where to put the smite multiplier and stuff, but according to their structure, you could come up with something like this, and this is pretty much how they calculate it and why they give you the 125% included, and it's accurate. Alright, now I'm gonna show you a scenario where wiki is wrong. Alright, the thing here is that, now I actually never expected this to happen. Oh my god, someone just came in. Let me just say something. Recording. Okay, so the thing is, it just makes so much sense to have, if you want to do the optimum amount of damage over time with toxin damage, you want to have these two mods on. It just makes so much sense to do that. However, if you do not have these two mods on, that means if you do not have an increment in toxin damage of 150%, that 125% increment to do your gas DOT damage does not apply. Alright, so let me show you what I mean. If I were to remove Fever Strike and everything else, okay, so I'm still doing gas damage, but this time I only have 60% toxin damage. And we're gonna see what happens in this scenario. Okay, so let's get a fresh charger. Alright, there you go. Okay, pay attention to that damage, because I'm going to show you how that actually shows in the spreadsheet. Okay, let's scroll up a little bit from the spreadsheet, and I actually made this for you guys to play with. I think this is very useful, especially if you want to know some details of your gas proc damages. You could actually use this to calculate. So first of all, what you need to do is fill up all the blanks with this color, right? So over here we have the weapons. It's okay if you put 0. If you don't want to, you can leave it blank as well. It doesn't affect the calculations. So in this case, we are using the shaku, so impact is 55. There's no puncher, no slash, no element. So just leave those there, and it will calculate the weapon's base damage by adding them up. And then over here, it'll come over here, and it's gonna be using this amount to do your calculations later. Now, since we are playing with the infested charger, which is a good test subject because it does not actually has any positive or negative modifier on toxin, so the health modifier does none, so just leave it at 0. And then we come to damage multiplier. Now we just took out the prime pressure point, so it's 0 at this moment. Also, I probably did not tell you this, but I do not have steel charge on. Then we come to the toxin multiplier. In this case, it's going to be 0.6. Before it's 1.5 because we have both the toxin mods on, but now we remove a 90%, so it's only one dual stat toxin mod, so it's 0.6. You can ignore this one, and then we have the affection mods, which is your smite. So in this case, we took it off as well, so it's 0. And what you'll see is that the first instant and the DOT damage, if you remove the heat and you're not doing gas procs, the DOT damage that you'll be doing on the enemy is going to show as 44, or in this case 43 as the actual. And the thing is, the first instant and the toxin damage is accurate. You can follow wiki, it is correct, and you can use that for all your calculations. The only problem with wiki is the DOT damage, or rather the second instance of your gas proc. Now if you follow the wiki and do as if by increasing it by 125%, you're supposed to get 55 damage, but as you can see in that scenario, from 44 as the toxin damage, it became 33, and that is lower. The DOT damage is lower than your first instant damage. So something is up over there. It is not an increment of 125%. Instead, it's a decrement of a certain percentage. So what I believe the formula should be is this one. So instead of that formula that I just learned over here, I believe that the formula should be something like this: toxin damage times the now when I say toxin damage, I mean the weapon, base weapon, times the toxin multiplier, and that will give you the toxin damage. And from there you multiply with the damage multiplier, and then the affection multiplier to the power of 3. Now interestingly enough, why is it to the power of 3 is because I believe there is a weapon base, a toxin multiplier, and a damage multiplier, and each one of them, for some weird reason, the system included an extra 30% from your faction multiplier. So all of those will have base damage times faction multiplier, toxin damage times the faction multiplier, then the damage multiplier times faction multiplier. That's why it times a faction multiplier to the power of 3. And then yeah, and at the end of everything you times with the health modifiers. But since we don't have any, so we could ignore this. Okay, and if you follow this, you'll get 33 damage, which is accurate. And this actually works for a lot of cases, but as the damage increase, you'll see a lacking of accuracy, and there is a reason why. So if you scroll down a little bit, you can actually see this sample part. Basically, I tried with different weapons and different way of modding it, and recorded all of the damage one by one. You can only imagine how long it took to do this, and all these parts are actually individual damage values that are recorded, it's actual, so what you see is written over here. It's not calculated out. Alright, now the key here that I want to show you guys is something that I've been talking about for a really long time, about insignificant values that's being added by the game to sort of give them information. So over here you can actually see it. Now this is the DOT damage from your Toxin Proc, and this is the Toxin damage from your gas Proc, and they have the exact same formula. Okay, the formula which I've talked about just now, which is this one, is the exact same thing. We are using the same weapon, so it has the same base damage. We are using the same Toxin Multiplier. Everything is exactly the same. There is no reason for it to come out with different values. So the only reason that I could think of is that the game actually increases the damage insignificantly, so that the game knows what to do with the damage. Where is the damage source and what kind of damage it is. So in this case, if it's a DOT damage, it shows this value. And if it's from Toxin, so it's a DOT damage, most likely that will tell the game to continue doing 9 ticks for 8 seconds if he sees this damage. If he sees this damage with an extra 1 damage, then the game knows that, oh, this actually belongs to the gas proc and it's supposed to do only once. It's not the DOT damage. Now this is just speculation. There is nothing out there to say that I'm right or wrong yet. If you know the answer to this, definitely let me know in the comments. And so same goes with slightly different modding. So this again, you could see that there is 1 damage extra. You can actually give this a try. The way everything, the criteria is listed over here, you can actually try it out yourself and see that there is a damage difference. If you use the Atarax, again you can see a damage difference over here of 1, here of 1 as well. Now the next thing that I figure out from this table is that the damage increase is not a flat value. It's not like, oh, if it's from gas then increase by 1 damage. It's not like that. They increase it in a percentage wise. It's like a really small percentage. And the reason why I would say that is because if you use a weapon with higher base damage, like for example the Duke Prime, what you'll see is that instead of increasing by 1 damage, now it increases by 2 damage. And if you use something with even higher base damage, like the Galatine Prime with 165 base damage, you're gonna see the damage value, like from here to here is 2 damage, from here to here is 4 damage increment. Now this sort of tells us that if it's by a percentage, and if you keep multiplying, if you have different multipliers coming in, that value can actually increase to a lot. It could go more than 10 damage, it could go maybe even higher. So if you see a variation of damage but your calculation is really close, most likely you are accurate, or most likely you are correct. Give or take like 5% error margin, and that should be okay. For the gas proc second instant, because we don't really know the exact formula, it's very hard to tell what is the amount increase or decrease. We don't even know if it's because of a really small insignificant value that due to all the different multipliers that increase it and differ from the actual by a lot. So I'm going to show you an example. Now all these are actually actual, you're just going to have to take my word for it, or you could test it out yourself. So let's say we're going to use the Twin Basslock. Okay, it's an easy weapon. So it has elemental, 65 heat damage, so let's type that in. Damage multiplier, alright, Toxin. Okay, so let's say we take the 1.5, okay, and have this one. So from here we could see that the DOT is 592. Okay, however, if you use this formula, you'll get it at 567.6. Now you might think that, whoa, that's like slightly, it's almost like 30 damage difference, and it might feel like a lot, but if you were to take that 30 damage or that 20-ish damage and you divide it by this amount, you'll see that the value is actually very close to about 5%, which is an error margin that I'm quite comfortable working with. You might notice that the one from Wiki is a lot closer to the actual, but again, that is only because I'm using a Toxin Multiplier of 1.5. If I were to use it at a different value, it will go way off, and whereas the second instant, this one with this above formula, is going to bring it really close, and this is why I believe that this is how the game actually calculates. Now I'm going to show you an example. Let me just hide these over here, hide this. Okay, so over here we have the twin Basilock, and I did some variation of the Toxin Multiplier. If it is 0.6, so 0.6 like that, okay, with pressure point and also smite on, I will get 241 damage. Now this 241 damage is the actual, what you see on the enemy. Okay, so in this case you could see that the wiki one shows you 378, which is not logical, because because the damage is only 241. However, the second instant will show you 227, and if you do the calculations again, you'll see that the error margin is about 5%. And again, you could try this again with different, like let's say if you do not want to have smite, okay, it should be 108. Okay, so this one shows you 172, whereas this one shows you 103. So it's a lot closer to the actual. The extra damage is most likely due to, like I said, the insignificant amount being multiplied and increased, so therefore you have a slight gap. So if you have been paying attention, you will notice that there is a version 2 DOT damage over here that is a lot more accurate than even the second formula that I showed you over here, which is the one at the top. Now this is the thing that I believe the game is using. I believe the game uses this equation, and then because of the insignificant value and blah 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 blah. But if you want to have an accurate amount to see, to look at, to know how much damage you'll actually see, this is actually a better value. Okay, and this equation is very complicated, and I'm not actually going to explain it. However, if you are interested, I did leave the formula over here. So this is the version 2 DOT formula, and it's really purely my own creation. It's not based off any specific thing. So yeah, so this one you can see all the variables from the game putting in. This one I have created different variables to represent certain things to give you this answer. Okay, so this one will give you a lot of answers very close to the actual. So for example, if I, let's do some testing. So yeah, so without any damage multiplier, I should get like 40 damage. So it shows 41, which is again really close. The second one shows you 39, and this one is totally off. It shows you 65. If let's say we try, I don't know, let's try one of these. Okay, let's try this one. So with a pressure point, prime pressure point, and 100 and 150. Okay, so you should get 267. So you can see here is 269, whilst the second one shows you 258, about almost 10 damage difference. So this one is only 2 damage difference, and in other words, this one gives you an accuracy of almost like 1% error, whilst this one will vary according. Now the thing about the second instant is that if the value is very small, it is very accurate. As the value gets bigger and bigger, it becomes more and more inaccurate. Whereas this one doesn't have that problem. It will still stick to almost 1 to 2% inaccuracy, but this one can go up to 5, almost 6% inaccuracy as the value grows big. As a summary for this video, the Toxin Procs DOT damage and also gas procs first instant or toxin damage is accurate as per Wiki's formula. However, when it comes to the gas proc Toxin DOT, it is only accurate with the Wiki's formula if it has a 150% Toxin Multiplier. Otherwise, this is probably a better representative of what the game is actually calculating or doing. However, if you want a more accurate reading, I also included this version 2, which is a formula with my own custom variables to give you a much more accurate reading. Down here, you also learn that even though you're using the same weapon with the same base damage and using the same equation as well, you could still end up with different results. And those slight variation is most likely what the game does to tell it apart from different damage type or instances. And as the damage increase or the base damage increase or more multipliers is included, that variation grows as well, because most likely it is increased, that as in that insignificant value is increased by a percentage instead of a flat value. So that's pretty much it for this video. I kind of did this whole thing unscripted, and I know there's a lot of room for improvements. I'm still working on it. And notice that I did not actually give you the toxin damage and also gas damage over here, because it's already been covered in my older videos. So if you want to know how to calculate these things, I'll put the link at the description below. Also, these damage, it's affected by armor, so you might not actually see these values if you're testing it against a Grenier kind of enemy. So what you have to do is really just basically take these values and then include into the damage reduction, and also don't forget about the health modifiers. And that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching. I'll put the link for this spreadsheet at the description. If you have any questions, you can catch me at my Discord hideout. Link is also at the description, or you could find me at Twitter, link also at the description, or you can just comment at below the description. Also, let me know what you guys think. Is this a bug? Is it not a bug? Should it or should it not be calculated the way it is? Don't forget to like and subscribe, for my hard work. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.